In the middle of a small town that was too often forgotten by the world, lived a homeless man named Jack. Jack had once been a mechanic, a hard-working man who had known the warmth of a home, a steady job, and a community of friends. But life had a way of shifting without warning. One bad decision had led to another, and before he knew it, he was on the streets. The familiar sounds of engines and busy streets now replaced by the lonely silence of isolation. Jack wasn't bitter, though he had learned to survive. He spent his days doing odd jobs for people in town, mowing lawns, washing windows, anything to get by. He wasn't used to asking for help, but there was a humility in his heart that kept him going. One crisp morning, as Jack sat near an old tree by the roadside, a woman in her mid-30s drove by in a sleek black SUV. She slowed down as she passed, her gaze briefly meeting Jack's. There was something in her eyes, a deep, quiet sadness that caught his attention. The woman stopped her car, rolled down the window, and looked at Jack. "You look like you know how to fix things," she said. Her voice was soft, but firm. Jack blinked, unsure what to say. He was used to being ignored or avoided, not approached with a request. I can fix things," he said, a little surprised at the question. "Good," the woman said. "I've got a cabin up in the woods that needs some repairs. Could you take a look? I'll pay you well for your time." Jack had nothing to lose. "Sure," he said, standing up slowly, wiping his hands on his tattered jacket. "I can help with that." The woman handed him a slip of paper with an address and drove off without another word. Jack watched her disappear down the road. The offer seemed too good to be true, but he couldn't turn it down. He wasn't sure what awaited him at the cabin, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of hope. The drive to the cabin was longer than Jack expected. The road grew narrower, the trees taller, until finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he arrived at the cabin. It was an old structure, weathered by time and neglect, but there was a certain charm to it. The wooden walls had faded from years of exposure, and the porch sagged under the weight of disrepair. Still, it wasn't beyond saving. Jack could see the potential. As he stepped out of his car, a figure appeared on the porch. The woman who had hired him was standing there, her posture elegant but unassuming. She wore a light jacket, her hair tucked behind her ears, and as she saw him approach, she smiled. "Jack, I'm so glad you came." "I wasn't sure if you'd actually show up," she said warmly. "I said I would," Jack replied with a small smile. "Let's take a look at what needs fixing." The woman nodded and led him inside. The cabin smelled of old wood and dust, but there was a peacefulness to it. It felt like a place where memories had been made, even if now those memories seemed to be fading. "Where should I start?" Jack asked as he surveyed the interior. "The roof leaks. The floors are creaky and the windows need to be replaced," she explained. "I've tried to fix it myself, but it's too much. I just need someone who can make it safe again." Jack nodded, his mind already racing through a list of tasks. "All right, I'll get to work." The woman watched him for a moment, her eyes filled with gratitude, before turning to leave. "I'll check in on you later, but take your time. I'll leave some tools in the shed." Jack got to work immediately, his hands moving deftly as he assessed what needed to be done. It wasn't the first time he'd been given a task like this, but there was something different about this place. Something about the woman who had hired him, the way she spoke, the way she looked at him. It wasn't like other people who passed by him, ignoring his existence. As the days went by, Jack continued to work on the cabin. The woman came by every so often to check on him, bringing him meals and supplies. Each time, she seemed a little more at ease with him, and Jack began to feel a sense of camaraderie with her. Despite her wealth and apparent sophistication, she never looked down on him. In fact, she often listened when he spoke, as if his words mattered. There was something about the way she treated him that made Jack want to work harder, to prove himself. For the first time in years, he felt like he was doing something that mattered. As the repairs continued, Jack began to wonder more about the woman who had hired him. She didn't act like someone who was rich, not in the way he imagined wealthy people. She didn't flaunt her money, and she seemed more concerned with making sure the cabin felt like a home than anything else. One evening, while Jack was taking a break from work, he noticed something strange. The woman had left her laptop on the kitchen counter, and as he passed by, his eyes caught a glimpse of the screen. There were numbers, lots of them, and they seemed to go on forever. He squinted, tried to make sense of it, but before he could decipher anything, he heard her footsteps. "Jack, are you all right?" she asked, appearing in the doorway. He quickly turned away from the laptop, feeling guilty for snooping. "Yeah, just needed a rest." She smiled a little too knowingly. "It's okay. You're working hard. You deserve it." Jack nodded, still feeling the weight of what he had seen. The numbers, they had to mean something important. But he didn't want to ask. It wasn't his place. So he said nothing. Over the next few days, Jack found himself growing more comfortable in the woman's presence. They began talking more during their breaks, sharing stories of their pasts. She told him about the loss of her parents, how she had inherited the cabin, but had never really known what to do with it. Jack, in turn, shared his story, the pain of losing his job, his home, and the friends who had faded away when life got hard. He talked about the regret he carried with him, and how he had learned to survive by taking whatever work he could find. He was surprised by how easily the words came, as if he had known her for years. One evening, after a long day of work, the woman invited Jack inside for dinner. She had made soup and bread, and they sat at the small table, the flickering light of a candle casting shadows on the walls. "Thank you," Jack said quietly, his voice thick with emotion, "for giving me this opportunity." She smiled warmly. "You're welcome. You've worked harder than anyone I've known. I'm grateful." For a moment, there was a silence between them, an unspoken understanding, a shared connection that neither of them could explain. A week later, when Jack was putting the final touches on the cabin, the woman called him inside. There was a serious look on her face. "Jack, there's something I need to tell you," she began. Jack set down his tools and wiped his hands on his shirt. "What's going on?" She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I'm not just someone who inherited this cabin. I'm a billionaire. I own a company and I've made a lot of money. But that's not why I hired you." Jack blinked, surprised by the revelation. He had always suspected there was more to her than met the eye. But this was unexpected. "I know I've treated you like an equal," she continued. "And I don't want you to think I hired you because of your situation. I hired you because I saw something in you. Your integrity, your work ethic. I believe people like you deserve more than what the world often gives them." Jack was speechless. A billionaire? The woman who had been so kind, so down to earth? He had never imagined such a thing. The next day, the woman handed Jack an envelope before he left the cabin. He opened it to find a check for more money than he had ever seen in his life. "I want you to have a fresh start," she said softly. "This is for you, a chance to rebuild. Don't let your past define you." Tears welled up in Jack's eyes. "I don't know what to say." She smiled. "You don't have to say anything. Just take it, and know that there are people out there who care." As Jack walked away from the cabin, the weight of the check in his pocket, he realized that the true gift wasn't the money. It was a woman's belief in him, her unwavering faith that he could rise again. For the first time in years, Jack believed it too. Jack used the money wisely. He found a small apartment, started working at a local auto shop, and began rebuilding his life. The woman's kindness had transformed him, giving him the strength to fight for a future he had once thought was beyond his reach. Years later, Jack returned to the cabin, not as a homeless man, but as someone who had found his way again. He knocked on the door and the woman opened it, her face lighting up with recognition. "I knew you'd come back," she said. Jack smiled. "I just wanted to thank you for everything." And in that moment, they both understood that kindness had the power to heal the deepest wounds. This story carries themes of kindness, the power of second chances, and the unexpected ways in which generosity can change lives. The woman, though a billionaire, never flaunts her wealth, choosing instead to help a man who needed more than money. He needed hope. Certainly, here's a continuation of your emotional short story. A homeless man repaired a cabin, unaware the woman who hired him was a secret billionaire. Let's dive deeper into the unfolding transformation. Months passed, and Jack's life steadily improved. The small apartment he had secured was modest but cozy, a far cry from the cold benches and cardboard boxes he had once known. He found work at the local auto repair shop, and with each paycheck, he was able to rebuild his life slowly but surely. Yet, something kept pulling at his heart. The memory of the cabin and the woman who had given him not just a job, but hope. One evening, as Jack was finishing up a long shift, he received a call. He recognized the number immediately. It was the woman who had hired him, the one who had changed his life. "Jack, it's Emma," she said warmly. "I know it's been a while, but I was wondering if you'd like to come visit the cabin again. I've made some changes, and I'd love for you to see it." Jack hesitated for a moment, though his life had moved on. Part of him still felt drawn to her, to the place that had symbolized a new beginning for him. "Of course, Emma. I'd love to come by." When he arrived at the cabin, it looked even more beautiful than before. The repairs he had made had brought the old place back to life. But now, Emma had added her personal touch: new furniture, vibrant colors, and warm lighting. It was clear that the cabin had become a sanctuary for her. The transformation was evident, not just in the physical space, but in the way Emma now carried herself. There was peace in her eyes, a calmness that hadn't been there before. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Emma said as they sat together on the porch, sipping tea, "and I realized something important. This cabin isn't just a retreat for me. It's a symbol of what's possible when people invest in each other, not just financially, but emotionally." Jack nodded, grateful for her words. "I never would have gotten here without you, Emma." Her smile softened. "And you've shown me something too, Jack. That no matter where we come from, we all have a capacity to change, to grow. You taught me that." For the first time, Jack understood the depth of what she had done. She had given him more than just a job. She had given him the opportunity to rediscover his worth. As the months rolled by, Jack continued to thrive in his new life. Yet, one fateful evening, Emma called him again with a surprising proposal. This time, it was more than just a visit. "I've been thinking," she said, "about how much work you did on the cabin, about how much talent you have. And I have an idea I'd like to run by you." Jack listened intently, unsure what she had in mind. Emma had always been supportive, but this sounded like something different. "I'm in the process of opening a series of sustainable, eco-friendly resorts," she explained. "We want to keep the charm of the cabin and combine it with modern amenities. But we need someone who understands the value of hard work and the craft of restoration." Jack was taken aback. "You wanted to help with this? You're talking about an entire business." Emma smiled. "Exactly. I've seen your skills, Jack. Your ability to breathe new life into something, to see its potential when others can't. I want you on the team leading the restoration projects for the resorts." Jack's heart raced. He had gone from repairing a single cabin to being offered a leadership position in a business venture. The enormity of the opportunity overwhelmed him, and for a moment he doubted himself. "Emma, I don't know if I'm ready for something like this," Jack admitted, unsure. She reached across the table and placed a reassuring hand on his. "I believe in you, Jack, just as I did when I hired you to fix this cabin. You've proven yourself over and over again. All I'm doing is offer you a chance to shine." The words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. This was his moment. The next chapter in his life wasn't just about survival. It was about thriving, about building something that could last. It wasn't easy for Jack to take that first step into his new role. Every day was a challenge, balancing the high expectations of a fast-growing business with his own insecurities. But something had changed within him. He no longer saw himself as just a homeless man trying to get by. He was Jack, a skilled craftsman, a man with a future. In the months that followed, Jack helped oversee the restoration of several cabins for the resort. Each project was a labor of love, and the team he worked with became a second family. With every new restoration, Jack's confidence grew. His work spoke for itself, and soon the resorts were receiving praise for their unique blend of rustic charm and modern luxury. As the business expanded, Jack found himself in more leadership meetings with Emma. She had taken a step back from the day-to-day operations of the resorts, allowing Jack to lead the restoration efforts. It was a partnership built on mutual respect and trust. One evening, as Jack stood on the porch of a newly completed cabin, Emma came out to join him. The sunset bathed the cabin in a golden light, casting long shadows across the porch. For a moment, they just stood there, taking it all in. "You've done something incredible here, Jack," Emma said quietly. "I knew you had it in you, but this is beyond what I imagined." Jack smiled, looking out at the breathtaking view. "I didn't do it alone, Emma. You gave me the opportunity, the chance to prove myself." Emma shook her head. "No, Jack, you proved it to yourself." In that moment, Jack realized that the cabin, the business, the money, they were all just tools. The real transformation had been in him. Emma had given him more than just a job. She had given him belief. She had seen his potential before he had even realized it himself. As the years passed, Jack's life continued to evolve. He and Emma remained close friends, though their relationship had shifted from employer and employee to equal partners in the resort business. Jack had grown into a mentor for younger craftsmen, teaching them the same values he had learned on his journey. The resorts became a symbol of something larger, a place where people could reconnect with nature, with each other, and with themselves. But more than that, they were a testament to the power of second chances and the importance of seeing people for who they could be, not just for where they had come from. One afternoon, as Jack and Emma were walking through one of the newly restored cabins, Emma turned to him with a smile. "You know, Jack," she said, "I've been thinking about something. We built something incredible here, but there's more we could do. Maybe we could expand beyond just resorts. Maybe we could create a foundation to help people like you. People who need a chance, who need someone to believe in them." Jack paused, considering her words. The idea of giving back to others, of helping people who'd been in his shoes, was a powerful thought. He had experienced the transformative power of one person's kindness, and now he wanted to pay it forward. "That sounds like the next step," Jack said, a spark of excitement in his eyes. Emma nodded, her smile widening. "Let's do it." Years later, the resort business continued to thrive, but Jack and Emma's vision had expanded beyond just business. Together, they established a foundation that helped homeless people and others in need find stable work, housing, and the support they needed to rebuild their lives. It became a beacon of hope for many who felt lost, just as Jack had once been. On the opening day of the foundation, Jack stood on stage, looking out at the crowd. Emma was by his side, her presence as steady and unwavering as it had always been. They had built something together, not just a business, but a legacy. As Jack looked around, he saw people whose lives had been transformed by the same kind of opportunity Emma had given him. And for the first time, he felt like the work he was doing mattered more than anything else. "None of this would be possible without kindness," Jack said to the crowd, his voice filled with emotion. "Without someone believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." Emma, standing beside him, smiled. "And without you, Jack, none of this would exist." As the crowd erupted in applause, Jack felt a deep sense of peace. The journey he had taken, from a homeless man repairing a cabin to a man who now helped others, was a journey of redemption, of kindness, and of the power of second chances. And in that moment, Jack knew that his story had only just begun. And this continuation builds upon the themes of transformation, the power of kindness, and the unexpected ways that generosity can shape lives. It emphasizes not only personal growth, but the lasting impact of helping others. Jack's story comes full circle, culminating in a life of purpose, community, and giving back.